motion to consider vacancies would be out of order. I believe that we'd have to rescind a motion previously taken by this body in order to do so. Thank you.
So the motion taken by the body was to reconsider these vacancies at a later time. It is absolutely a later time, so it would not be out of order. Mr. Arrigo, you have a request for information?
Yes, thank you, Tony. Do we know if we have other folks that have put their names forward as potential nominees for these spots?
I do not know that. Personally, if anybody else knows that, I had not heard. Mr. Schwartzberg, a request for information from you?
I guess this kind of answers the previous thing. I just if we are doing the nominations, I intend to ask a revote on Rebecca, and if that gets rejected, I do have someone who is willing to step up, but I don't have his information handy at the moment, aside from his name and where he is.
Fair enough. Thank you. Mr. Tate, request for information.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have someone who would accept the nomination for JD5.
Thank you. So we do have a motion on the floor that's been seconded. I'm going to put a pin in that motion, in any discussion on that motion. I do want to get back to that quorum count before we move forward.
I'm going through the list right now. I could probably just be easier if I just do a roll count as I'm checking people off. So I don't see Mark Axon here. I see Michael Madrid, Ilya Schwartzberg, Tucker Coburn, Gary Popkin. I don't see Gilbert Mildenet here. I see Cody's here, Jay Carr's here, Todd Haggerty, Laura Newell are here. I see Rob Arrigo, Fred Cole, Nathan Dunn, John Janes. I don't see Brandon Lyon here. Karen Thompson is here. Mark Brayman is here. Tim O'Connor, Chris Alinsky, Rich Pertel, Tom Queter, Dustin Tate is here. Steve Becker, is Steve Becker here? I don't see Steve Becker. Carrie Bittner's here. I don't see Eric Cooper. Jim Dayton's here. Mark Legowski. Andrew Hollister. Okay, let's see here. Let me go back to, is Matthew Morgan here? One of the things. Yeah, Matthew Morgan I see is here. Okay, let me go back to JD5. Okay, I don't see Millie.
I'm here.
Oh, you're here.
I'll be here.
All right.
I'll be on this.
Maria Borrell, I see is here. Okay.
Exactly.
Let's see. Sean Hannon here. I don't see Sean Hannon. Sean Stevens, I see Sean Stevens here. Let's see.
Andrew, Aaron just sent a message to the chat.
So Dr. Becker is here.
Okay. So, okay, Steve Becker, I'll mark is here.
And we should be live on YouTube now. Sorry to interrupt, but.
All right. I lost my spot. Craig Mott.
I've confirmed that we are, and that is a beautiful thumbnail that we're using.
Fantastic.
Much better than the two we used yesterday.
Okay. I don't see Craig Miles here. Okay, I'll mark Steve Becker. Sean Phelan, I saw Sean Phelan is here.
Sean's here.
Jim Russell. I don't see him here. Kevin Wilson. I don't see Kevin Wilson. Tony DiRazio's here. I see him. Aaron Becker's here. Francis Law. I see Francis Law. Kathleen Ligamari. I don't see Kathleen. I'm here. I see Peyton is here. Patrick Mahoney. I don't see Patrick Mahoney. Nick Phelps. I don't see Nick Phelps. Let's see, Tara Scrivano. I don't see Tara Scrivano. Dwayne, I see Dwayne is here. Okay. Daniel Donnelly. I see Daniel Donnelly is here. Pietro, I saw that he was here. Okay. Robert, I'm gonna butcher this name again. Greebsland. Okay, I see Bill Schmidt is here. Let's see here, Anthony Pellegrino is here. Okay, Deepak Bansal, I don't see here. I don't see Gary Denoyan. I don't see Kenneth Epstein. I don't see Carmen Horan. I don't see Bobby Calty or Satinder Kaur or Mahiver Singh. Michael Arcati, I see is here. Gabrielle's here. Mark Weinblatt is here. Let's see, that's JD. Okay, I don't see Emmanuel Torres here. I see Aaron Comey is here. And then JD 13. I see Susan is here, and I see Richard Bell is here. Okay, so that is 13, JD 13, JD 12, JD 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. Okay, so 1, 2, 45 are present. Did anyone come in that I did not call? The ones that I have not seen come in yet are Mark Axon, Gilbert Mildonet, Brandon Lyon, Sean Hannon, Craig Miles, Eric Cooper, Andrew Hollister, Jim Russell, Kevin Wilson, Kathleen Ligamari, Patrick Mahoney, Nick Phelps, Tara Scrivano, Deepak Bansal, Gary Denoyan, Kenneth Epstein, Carmen Horan, Bobby Calty, Satinder Kaur, Mahiver Singh, Emmanuel Torres. Did any of them enter the meeting?
I don't believe any
Okay.
of them did.
All right, so we have, again, I think I said 45. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yes, you said 45.
Yep, 45. So we have 45 out of 66 members present.
We have quorum. Thank you. Yeah, I see that. We have 2 people who speak against and one who wants to table it. Laura, you did withdraw your objection to consideration of the question. I saw that. I think I need to take, let me take the 2 people who have asked to speak to the question first, and then we'll speak to you about tabling this, Laura. Mr. Rigo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm open to tabling this motion, but I'm going to speak against suspending of the rules. The purpose of voting none of the above on the vacancy in JD5 and 1 was really for a lack of information about the candidates. It has been roughly, 15 hours since that vote, and I'm not aware of any additional information that have come out about anybody. So I think it's proper at this time to maybe push this vacancy to the perhaps next state committee meeting both of these vacancies. The state committee can still operate, can still do business without filling these vacancies. There's no urgency to fill these vacancies at this time. And so I would say that we could push it to the next meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Popka, I'm going to let you speak for, and then we're going to move to the table discussion.
Oh, I don't see how any information is going to come out about these candidates. I don't think there's anybody who's doing any kind of opposition research. I would like to speak in favor of both Rebecca and David, even though Rebecca is a resident of Manhattan. She's come to many Brooklyn meetings and has been very helpful in Brooklyn. And as I said yesterday, David, when he was an enrolled libertarian, before he was a Democrat for a few months, he was very active in our chapter and ran, as I said, ran as a libertarian for city council. He petitioned when he was an enrolled libertarian before he was a Democrat, petitioned as a libertarian and ran on the libertarian line for city council. So I am not only in favor of my motion, but in favor of these two candidates. They've both been very helpful to Brooklyn.
Thank you, Dr. Popkin. Ms. Newell, you have a motion to table that you have put forth.
Yes, I think that we should table this until the first state committee meeting when we can more thoroughly determine candidates who are appropriate. Thank you.
Okay, so are you making a motion to table this?
Yes, I'm
motion to take this from the table
to the next state committee meeting.
Okay, is there a second to that? There is a second to that. Ms. Harlos, is a motion to take from the table debatable?
You're actually doing a motion to postpone definitely. A table would be if you're going to be, there's an emergency that requires you to put it aside and take up later, potentially at this meeting.
Okay.
What you're doing is a motion to postpone to a definite time, and yes, that is debatable.
Okay. Then we have one person in queue to did somebody second that motion?
I don't believe that's been seconded.
Yes, it was. You called it out and I removed it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, it's been seconded now, so we're good.
Who seconded that?
I don't know who originally did, but Nathan Dunn and Jay Carr both seconded it when I called for it the second time. But it's been second. Oh, look, it's been thirded too. Very funny, Mr. Queter. Mr. Schwartzberg, you want to speak against the postponement of this vote?
Yes, thank you. I don't see the reason to postpone. I think I wote like the vote to Rebecca to just be retaken because I've heard from a couple of people that they just didn't vote when they could for various reasons, inadvertence. I think that the vote will be simple and straightforward. If we redo it, it won't take time. It'll take less time than we're spending now. And the only reason to table it for the committee meeting, I think, would be just like a stealth, just retaking of the question, which I don't see why it wouldn't happen now. There's no, the motion for her was just to move along. It had nothing to do with more information.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartzberg. Mr. Brayman.
Yes, I would like to agree with what Mr. Schwartzberg said. I was one of the people who didn't get a chance. I shouldn't say didn't get a chance. I inadvertently fumbled with the vote. There were too many things going on and I have a small screen on the telephone, and I would have voted for Rebecca, which would have put her above the majority needed to be elected. I do think it's important in such a case to give every possible chance to Manhattan to be represented during today's discussion. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Would anybody else like to speak to, specifically to the question of whether or not these should be this should be postponed? Seeing none, let's move to a vote. TJ, I think we're ready for our first poll today.
Tony, you do have a raised hand.
I do have a raised hand. Susan.
I also didn't vote for Rebecca, and I would have.
Thank you, Ms. Cummings. TJ, we're ready for our first vote of the day. Shall the consideration, how do we word this? I believe that an aye would postpone the question and a nay would continue debate now. Is that correct, Ms. Harlos?
That's correct. And it would require a majority to postpone.
Thank you. That was going to be my next question. Almost as if you read my mind.
Scary thing.
So if you would be.
And is this for both open vacancies?
It was the original main motion was for both vacancies. So yes, this would be for both vacancies.
That is JD1 and JD5. If I remember correctly, it was to the first state committee meeting.
That's correct.
So I have, shall we postpone definitely the filling of both vacancies, JD1 and JD5, to the first state committee meeting? How long would you like that out there?
Let's make it 2 minutes.
Okay. It has been submitted. If any of you left your computers on with Porcupine up all night long, you might want to refresh your screen just to make sure it's reconnected to the server. It is complete.
Great. With 23 ayes and 17 nays, the consideration of JD 1 and 5 vacancies is postponed to the first state committee meeting. The Everybody has spoken. Count on it being the very first motion made at the next state committee meeting. Orders of the day tell us that we should move on to the discussion of platform and the consideration of changes. Mr. Schwartzberg has a request for information.
Yes, when exactly is the whole state committee meeting again? I thought that would be like every 2 years. Or are we doing it more often?
Well, I believe that's going to be a question for the chair of the new state committee, Mr. Anderson, and I will allow him to answer that.
Mr. Schwartzberg, repeat his question, please. I apologize.
When are we meeting of the entire state committee and not just the executive committee? Because the hold it like every 2 years.
Illy, you're cutting out. I missed a couple words there. I apologize.
When are we intending to have a meeting of the entire committee and not just the executive committee? Because other parties will hold it maybe once annually.
I expect to have a full meeting within the next 30 days.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to discussion of platform and consideration of changes. There was an unofficial committee that had come forward to work on platform changes. That was led by Pietro, and I'm going to hand the floor over to him right now.
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to adopt the recommendations of the unofficial platform committee, which consists of the 16 platform planks emailed to everybody and the preamble to precede it. That is what we recommend adopting as the platform of the Libertarian Party of New York.
Okay, and there's a second to that motion from Mark Raymond. Mr. Kolsky, you have point of order?
Yes, platform amendments need to be taken up individually.
Okay, I am inclined to agree. So, Mr. Geraci, would you like to go over these platform amendments one by one, and we will consider each of them individually as individual motions?
Yes, we can do that.
Let's do that. Mr. Kolsky, do you have them handy so they can also be shared with the body?
Yes, I will.
Visually?
You do have some items in the interrupted queue.
Dr. Gogowski, you have an objection?
Yes, Mr. Chair. At the present time, the committee does not have a platform, so there is no need to make amendments. But we need to adopt the platform before we can make an amendment. And I recommend we adopt the platform in its entirety.
Okay. Thank you. Are you telling me that the Libertarian Party of New York does not have a platform?
This committee does not have a platform that it's adopted.
Okay, Mr. Anderson, you have point of order?
I believe Mr. Geraci made the motion out of committee. I don't believe that there is a committee for platform. There's an unofficial group of people that gathered to talk about platform and make some recommendations as to platform, but I don't know that it came out of committee in the true sense. We do not even have a platform committee yet.
So to clarify, I did recognize that this was an unofficial committee and required a second, which it did receive.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Kolsky, is that another point of order?
My point of order was in response to Mark.
Okay. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Rule 12 in our special rules of order says when discussing the platform, the previously adopted platform shall be the base set on which amendments, additions, and deletions shall be offered. Such changes to the platform shall require a vote in accordance with the rules of the Libertarian Party.
So, but would you assert that then the 1983 platform would be the base from which we are working?
No, the August 2019 platform.
The August 2019 platform. Okay, fair enough. Thank you. Mr. Schwartzberg, you have point of order.
Yeah, I was just going to clarify that legally, this committee steps into the shoes of the ISC. So we do already have a platform if we choose to take it up from the ISC.
Thank you.
Automatically have it unless we reject it.
That is my understanding as well. We should consider each of these amendments separately and not as a collective. We have Mr. Cole, you have called to discharge a committee?
Yeah, I was struggling to find the right button. I actually wanted to refer this to committee. I don't know if that's the correct thing that I was doing. That was my intention.
Well, I would say that that's not in order right now. It is certainly in order for a member of this body to bring forth platform points, and each of the individual platform points could absolutely be referred to committee, unless you want to make a motion to refer the entire platform to committee, to an official committee.
And by the way, that button is in the join motion queue. It's one of the brown ones near the bottom.
Yeah, I was struggling to find it. I had to relocate because the sun was in the screen. Yeah, my intention was to refer the entire thing to.
So Mr. Cole, are you making a motion to refer the platform to a platform committee constituted by the State Committee of the Libertarian Party of New York? At this time?
Yeah. So look, platform. I understand precisely how difficult it is to write a platform. I appreciate the effort that's been put forward here. It's obviously a lot of work and consideration went into this. I do not like this document. I don't think we should consider it at this time. I think we should refer it to a platform committee. So I move to refer to a committee.
Okay, we do have a second on that, and Mr. Geraci, I will let you voice your objection.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There is no reason to have to refer this to a committee. We had a committee. We spent the summer working on this. There were ample opportunities for state committee members to get involved with this committee. And we put a lot of work in. We did internal polling and we worked to present the order that it's in. And to refer this to another committee would simply be dilatory. So there's no need to do that. Let's proceed to a vote and get these planks amended, or excuse me, get these planks added to our platform.
Mr. Cole, I see you also have an objection, and kind of curious on this one.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I wasn't sure I wasn't sure how best to object it. I object to referring to the informal committee. Sorry, but it wasn't a committee as an actual committee. No committee handled this. With all due respect, this was a couple of people who cooked this up. The reason the current platform is small. It's less than 500 words. It fits on a postcard. We did that on purpose. So we could give the full elected state committee deference to handle this. We put off writing an expansive platform for the sole purpose of seating the elected committee that enrolled libertarians had weighed in on and voted for, and then that elected state committee would appoint a platform committee to write a platform. This is, I'm sorry, you may have talked to a lot of people and they may have even been on this new state committee, but it was not a committee. If we want to do this correctly, and we damn well should, because it's our freaking platform, we should form a committee, have that committee sit down, take a lot of time and write it. There's no there's no urgency to adopt this document. We already have a platform that's perfectly serviceable. There's no rush to do this before the election. And I want the full elected state committee, including the people we just elected yesterday, to be able to weigh in on this and write a platform from the ground up. I appreciate all the time and effort they put into this, but it's simply not right at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. For the record, you could have spoken for your motion. Mr. Geraci, you have raised a question of privilege.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Can I respond to that?
I will give you a chance to respond, but I want to get this request for information discharged first. Mr. O'Connor?
I am trying to understand the concept of what we're talking about here because, and I appreciate Pietro and I appreciate Fred's points here. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to speak. But when were we an official committee and how do we proceed from that? When were we officially seated as representatives? And so I think that that's an important point. And if we could clear that up for me, I would appreciate it.
Well, you became an official committee yesterday with the organizing meeting. There were a lot of people who did a lot of pre-work. Mr. Cole is correct that this platform committee is absolutely an unofficial committee who did an awful lot of work, and there are several groups of people who did an awful lot of work ahead of this convention to get stuff done. And now it is up to this body whether or not we want to consider that work now or refer it to a committee. If we are going to consider that work now, then we should go through it plank by plank. And with that, I am going to allow Mr. Geraci to respond to Mr. Cole.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Just a FYI, your special rules say that before a member can speak twice, everyone else who wishes to speak needs to have that opportunity. And you do have someone in your queue.
I do. You are correct. I will give Mr. Brayman a chance to speak before ahead of this. I have a feeling that he's going to say a lot of the same things.
Yes, I would like to speak against the referral to a committee. While this was not an official committee, I was actually a participant by the grace of the ISC on the prior official committee that adopted the platform that's currently listed on our website. As I recall, there were 3 people who participated in those committee meetings, Mr. Cole, myself, and I believe it was Mr. DeRazio. My memory may be wrong. It was over a year ago, but we did agree that, and I supported the idea of putting this platform which Mr. Cole largely wrote. The feeling was that we needed to wait until there was an elected committee. Now there is an elected committee. Those elected people decided to take some initiative over the summer as an unofficial platform committee, which had the same status during most of the summer as the unofficial rules committee. Now, the ISC decided to turn the unofficial rules committee into an official rules committee. I'm still unclear as to why they did not decide to do the same with the unofficial platform committee. In any case, it's up to this body as a whole now to decide whether our work as an unofficial platform committee is worthy of consideration right now. We don't have more urgent business, in my opinion. The most urgent business that we have as a party is to get our candidates elected and especially to get Joe Jorgensen 160,000 votes. This platform was put together with that as the primary goal in mind, to gain attention from media to our party. I feel that having participated in both the last platform committee and this unofficial group, that this does a better job. It's actually a more representative committee involving more people. We polled vigorously during the summer to try to get feedback, and this is the time to consider this.
Thank you, Dr. Bremen. Seeing no one else in queue waiting to speak, I'm going to allow Pietro to respond to Mr. Cole, and then I see Mr. Cole is also in queue to speak. And then I think we should probably move to a vote on moving this to committee after they speak. Go right ahead, Mr. Geraci. I'm going to give you a minute to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I second everything Mark said, and it's true that the Rules Committee was unofficial, and we worked and drafted a bunch of rules that were then adopted by the Libertarian Party of New York, and nobody complained that it was an unofficial committee. And as far as urgency goes, no, we really don't have more urgent business, but I think parts of this platform are urgent because the next time we get to consider the platform would probably be after Election Day, where we wouldn't be able to adopt very important points concerning lockdowns, government mandates with the COVID response, as well as opposition to taxes, marijuana, stuff that sets us apart from the other parties that might turn some heads, gain some media attention, and help get the votes we need for Joe Jorgensen to maintain the LPNY's ballot access. So I urge the state committee not to refer this to a committee. Let's have a vote on these amendments. Even if not all of them pass, let's have a vote.
Thank you, Mr. Geraci. Mr. Cole, I'm going to give you 1 minute to speak, but you do also have a question of privilege, I think.
Yeah, so a couple of things. First, there were more than 3 people on the old platform committee. It not only included myself, but Mr. Mata. I think Andrew was in there. There was half a dozen people. Okay, it wasn't 3 people. Second of all, oh, I seem to have lost my thread here. Look, this is, nope, I left my legal pad outside. Look, there were, with all due respect to the amount of time they put into this, I do not subscribe to our Marxist friends' labor theory of value. So the amount of hours put into a project does not equate the amount of value of that project. This platform definitely needs substantially more work if it's to even be considered. I've tried to hold back here, but it was very sloppily drafted. I do not believe it's worthy of our consideration. We should refer this to a committee and have a committee do some work on it.
Well, with that, I'm going to move us to a vote. Sure, and so I think I need 2 minutes on the clock for this one, TJ. The motion would be, the question should read, shall the platform be?
I've got, shall we refer the platform of the LPNY to a committee? Does that work for you?
You're way better at wordsmithing these things than I am, TJ.
2 minutes, it's out.
2 minutes, it's out. Sounds good.
And to clarify, it is out now for 2 minutes, not in 2 minutes, it will be out.
Got it. Got another 20 seconds left on that vote. That poll is closed. 26 ayes and 14 nays. That is a majority. This body has spoken. We will refer platform of the LPNY to a committee. I am sure that it will be something that is considered in a pretty swift fashion. Mr. Alinsky, you have a request for information.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I believe yesterday, Mr. Arrigo had raised a point of there being some certain rules that were very important to the fate of some of the committee and the executive offices. I'm not sure if I'm recalling that correctly, but he did say that it was important that we possibly get to that. I'm just wondering if he's available to potentially give him a chance to address what he was speaking of, and whether or not at this time the body would like to proceed with suspending the rules and revisiting that. Thank you.
So I will give I'll give Mr. Arrigo a chance to respond to that request for information. I believe he's on the call. I thought he's on. Mr. Arrigo, are you here?
He is, Tony. It looks like he's on a phone though, not on like a.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm asking him to unmute, but I can't ask him to unmute if he's on a phone.
Yeah.
If someone could get a message to him to unmute, I'd love to give him a chance to respond to that. I would entertain a motion to suspend the rules to put some time on the clock to consider the remainder of the Rules Committee's considerations. But Mr. Arrigo, are you prepared to speak to this?
Tony, it looks like he's just having issues signing on here because he's trying to sign back in. I can see that.
Oh
So.
yeah. Okay. So I was just too hasty in trying to get him back on the phone.
Oh, wait. Rob is having technical issues. Looks like he just came in.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, I'm having so many technical issues here, so I'm going to have to shut my computer down and restart. But right now I'm on the phone so that I can hear what's going on. Yeah, the amendments to the bylaws, which I have proposed, impact the consideration and endorsement process for non-members of the Libertarian Party, as well as the section 14.5, which calls for I forget how they word it, and I don't have my thing in front of me because my computer's down. But those are important. Whether we get to them today or get to them at the next state committee meeting, I don't think it really matters all so much. But those have to be addressed prior to the interviewing process. So figure January 1st. And so if the body wants to address them today, I'm happy to do that. If we want to wait, I'm happy to do that also, so long as we can definitely get something worked out one way or the other by January 1st.
Okay.
And that's
Thank you, Mr. Arrigo. Mr. Alinsky, you have a motion to suspend the rules.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I move that we suspend the rules of the agenda of the day and reconsider Mr. Arrigo's amendments.
Okay. Mr. Malinsky has made a motion to suspend the rules to consider Mr. Arrigo's amendment. I would accept the second at this time. Mr. Councilman has seconded that. Is there any discussion on this? Hearing none, let's move to a vote. I love our efficiency today.
And did I hear correctly that the suspension of the rules was only to consider Arrigo's amendments, or was it to any amendments of the rules?
That was the motion.
Okay.
Mr. Alinsky, you have a question of privilege?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To answer TK's question as to what this poll is, I'm not sure if I can make a friendly amendment to my own motion, but I'm willing to, if the body so chooses, to discuss others to allow that too. But if I don't want to hold this up any more than we have to, I'm open to us using what time we have today to get business done instead of putting it off. But if we're just going to address Mr. Arrigo's, that's fine too. Either or is good with me. Thank you.
So was your intention just to address Mr. Arrigo's amendments, or was it to address all the Rules Committee's amendments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, if there's people here that want to get stuff done, let's do it.
Okay, so let's rescind this question. I'm going to ask Mr. Kolsky a question. How far down the rules amendments did we get yesterday?
Okay, we have 4 proposals that we didn't get to. 2 of them were Rob Arrigo's, and 1 of them was Daniel Donnelly's, or 2 of them were Daniel Donnelly's amendments. I can mention what they were.
No, that's not necessary. I just wanted to count. So what I would do, what I would entertain right now, and we're going to kind of do this outside of Roberts here a little bit, I know, but I would entertain a motion to consider the remaining 4 rules amendments, if that was the desire of this body to consider the 4 remaining rules amendments. I see a head nod from Mr. Alinsky, so I'm going to take that as you worded that well, Tony, and I'm making that motion. Is there a second to that motion? Mr. Councilman has seconded that motion. Is there any discussion on considering the remaining rules amendments from the Rules Committee at this time? Great. Mr. Councilman, you want to speak for it? Go ahead.
Thank you. So the body does not have much more to deal with, and I think it would be a beneficial use of our time, since we are all here, to take up the further amendments and just be able to fine tune this, because it is important to have a sustainable document that can help govern and reference or provide reference to different things that we need. And I think if we can all agree upon that today, it'll create less hiccups in the future. So that's why I'm in favor of this. Thank you.
Okay. Would anybody else like to speak to this motion? Then I think we can move to a vote. And this time, TJ, it would be more than just the Arrigo amendments. It would be all the remaining rules amendments.
So I have, shall we suspend the rules to consider the remaining rules amendments?
That sounds great to me.
2 minutes?
2 minutes.
It is out there.
Got another 30 seconds left. Looks like we have results with 35 ayes, 5 nays, and 2 abstentions. We are suspending the rules to considering the remaining rules amendments. So with this, I am going to turn the floor over to Mr. Colstein. I'm going to ask that he continue the format from yesterday's report that he used to basically take turns.
Okay, I will pull up the report. Hang on. Let me, let's see. Okay, I'm going to share the running minutes. So, okay, you should see the running minutes. I'm going to pull up the next amendment is Arrigo Amendment B concerning times for getting candidates on board. So I'll turn it over to Rob to speak on his B amendment.
Mm-hmm. And before you do that, I'd like to remind the body that if it's moved to adopt these amendments, these will require a second.
Just real quick, just quick housekeeping, just a reminder to everybody, when we do share screens, it's going to default to a full screen version. So if anybody's having difficulty with that, just the top right-hand corner is the view button, and you can exit full screen from there.
Great. Mr. Rigo, floor is yours.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And Andrew, I apologize because I didn't really understand how you had split my amendments up, but now it kind of makes more sense to me. And so this amendment has to do with the timing for which we make endorsements and give preferential treatment for Libertarian Party candidates. Now, I absolutely support 100% giving Libertarian Party candidates preferential treatment and getting our endorsement and sort of putting a veto on non-Libertarian Party candidates in the same race, getting access to our line through Wilson Pakula. However, the rules as they're written create a very, very challenging and difficult timeline for the affiliates, for the county organizations, and even the state committee to adequately vet, interview, screen, and petition for non-member candidates prior to the end of the petitioning deadline. The rules as they're written say, essentially, that any Libertarian Party member can waltz out of the woods and demand access to the line and veto a non-Libertarian member through 7 days into petitioning season. This creates a disincentive for county affiliates, organizations, and even the state committee to actually interview non-Libertarian candidates prior to that deadline, meaning that to interview non-Libertarian candidates, you will then have 5 weeks to complete the task. It's not a problem if there's only one race. It's a big problem if you have 2 congressional districts, 3 assembly districts, and 2 Senate districts. And it's an even bigger problem in county organizations, in county elections and municipal elections, because I could have as many as 40 races in a municipal election year like next year. And so what my amendment does is it preserves the institution of giving Libertarians preferential treatment to the line, but it pushes that deadline from 7 days into petitioning to 30 days prior. And so if you're a member of the party and you want to run for any office and you reach out to the state committee or you reach out to your local organization 30 days prior and say, hey, I'm going to run for this office, then in order to allow a non-Libertarian candidate to get access to the line, we maintain the 2/3 majority that was in there before. If it's between that 30 days prior and petitioning, then it becomes a majority vote, Now, what I'll say is that there's nothing that any of us can do to prevent a Libertarian Party member from getting ballot access in any election. You're allowed by state election law to petition your way on. It's just a question of endorsement. And so I think by switching the deadlines, this creates more time for county affiliates and organizations to do their business. And I also think, secondly, it creates the proper incentive for Libertarian Party candidates. In my opinion, if you are intending to run for office, and I don't care if it's school board or if it's president of the United States, if you're not thinking about getting into that race more than 7 days into petitioning, you probably should reconsider running for that office and waiting for another election cycle. We want to incentivize people who want to go out and run professional campaigns. I don't think we want to incentivize putting people's names on the ballot for the sake of putting people's names on the ballot. I'm not sure there's any value in that. And so I would ask that we adopt this change, make it easier, and create the same, create better incentives for our candidates to move forward. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Arrigo, so you are moving to adopting the Arrigo Amendment B. Is there a second to this motion? There is a second from Mr. Cole. Dr. Glogowski, I see you are in queue to speak against. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, everything that Robert Regal said in terms of the criteria for the Libertarian candidate to apply 30 days in advance and announce it 30 days in advance. Well, why isn't that same standard applied to the non-Libertarian candidate, that they need to apply 30 days in advance? The 7-day period that was originally put in here was put in here deliberately to force the non-Libertarian candidates to actually announce their intentions instead of waiting until the last minute. And if they did wait to the last minute, was to give them a penalty for having done so. I'm totally opposed to these changes. It's inappropriate to change their rules to accommodate non-Libertarian candidates at the expense of Libertarian candidates. And the problem we have had in the past is that we have not been actively telling people what positions are available, and when they finally do hear about them, most of the times it's been in the middle of the petitioning period, and we're fighting against the clock. Some of the next proposals are going to actually be impacting that situation, and I'm objecting to changing what we've already worked out in terms of something that would be beneficial for Libertarian candidates. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Glogowski. Dr. Brayman, you wanted to speak against.
Yes, I'd like to speak against this motion. I agree with everything that Dr. Glogowski said. Additionally, it's difficult for me to judge this without looking through the prism of my experience in the 22nd congressional district race of this year, where Claudia Tenney was trying to get a certificate of authorization. Looking at the timeline for this year, 30 days prior to the start of petitioning would have been January 31st or so. My recollection is that at that time we had neither an official request from Claudia Tenney nor an official declaration of candidacy from any Libertarian. It was only a little bit after that, and in fact, very close to the start of the petitioning period, that Keith Price, Libertarian, announced that he was interested in the position. If we had had this rule in place, he wouldn't have had the preference of having a rule that protected his candidacy. And I believe that he would have been overwhelmed by the odds of losing a primary to Claudia Tenney by virtue of her getting a certificate of authorization. So for those reasons, and looking it through that prism, I must vote against this proposal.
Thank you, Dr. Brayman. Rob, I'm going to let you speak for, and then we'll get to Ms. Bittner.
Okay, can you hear me, Tony?
Yes.
All right, so let's clear up some misconceptions. This does not give preferential treatment to non-Libertarian candidates. That is not true. This maintains the same standard that existed before. What this gives preferential treatment to are county affiliates, organizations that have to do the hard work of actually interviewing candidates, vetting them, passing petitions, right? And so if a libertarian in my instance, in my amendment, came to us after the 30-day deadline, it would be very easy to support them still and to block a non-libertarian candidate. It simply would be a majority vote, all right? But if they came to us 30 days in advance, then it would be a 2/3 vote. That's the only change here, right? And so you can still block a non-libertarian candidate. You just lowers the threshold to a majority vote. It doesn't give preferential treatment to non-libertarian candidates. It gives preferential treatment to libertarian candidates by saying essentially anybody that wants to run for the office and puts a little forethought into it gets the line. There's nothing wrong with that. Finally, it creates the incentive to do the right things from a candidate's perspective. And so I just wanted to clear that up. It's not preferential treatment. And I think it's a good amendment. It'll make doing business for county affiliates much easier. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Arrigo. Ms. Bittner.
Harry, you should be good.
Yes, she's unmuted.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I was just saying I agree with Dr. Glagowski and Dr. Brayman and do not support this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Would anybody else like to speak to this motion? Hearing none, let's move to a vote. TJ, let's make it for 2 minutes. Shall the Arrigo amendment be adopted or something like that?
I've got, shall we adopt Arrigo B amendments to Rule 14 regarding candidate notification time?
Sounds great.
2 minutes, it is out there.
We have about 30 seconds left on this one. I'll take the request for information, Mr. O'Connor.
Okay, so I think that this highlights a particular problem within the Libertarian Party, in that if we had better information disseminated about how we're supposed to petition, and as we're forming new county organizations and things like that, I think it suggests a course of action, regardless of whether this passes or not. I certainly thank you, by the way, for recognizing me, and also thank you, Mr. Arrigo, for putting this issue out there, because I think it highlights another issue, and that's we need some sort of communication system as to how to effectively get ready for campaigns, when they start, when they don't, and especially as we form new county committees and things like that, that information coming from us would be particularly helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Connor. We do have results with 18 ayes, 20 noes, and 3 abstentions. The amendments fail. I turn this back over to Mr. Kolstein for the next amendments.
All right, again, I'll go to, hang on, share my screen. There it is. Okay. This is Donnelly Amendment C regarding striking the entirety of Article 10 on the Judicial Committee. If Daniel Donnelly wants to speak on his amendment. Is he here?
Yeah, I saw him.
Yes,
Yep, there you go.
yes, I'm here. So I propose this only because I understand we want to keep an homologous state affiliate to the national party, but I just not see a judicial branch being recognized. So it is a nice concept, but I just not see inter-officer or inter-county disputes being able to be settled in any way which would be universally recognized. So only on those grounds do I oppose this proposition. That is all. Thank you.
Mr. Kolstein, if you'd be so kind as to put that back on screen. Mr. Donnelly, you are you moving to strike the entirety of Article 10 as superfluous right now? Is that the motion you are making?
Yes, that is a motion which I am making.
Fair, okay, is there a second? Seeing no second to this motion, the motion fails. Mr. Kolstein, the floor is yours.
Okay. Let me pull up the rules subcommittee report. Okay, so the Arrigo Amendment C, I'm going to put it on the next page here, regarding the striking of prohibition against accommodations section, which is, well, we had renumbered, so it's now part of Article 14. So if Rob wants to speak on his amendment.
Yes, go ahead, Rob.
Okay. All right. Can you hear me, Tony?
Yep.
Yep. My amendment is to strike Article 14.5 from the proposed bylaws. 14.5 as it exists now calls for the prohibition against accommodations, which means it's a mandate on county affiliates and county organizations, and I would guess even the state committee itself in areas where we do not have an organized county, to place a public notice, call for candidates, and either website, social media, email, postal service, or whatnot. Now, having any county organization, any good county leadership should absolutely be trying to find libertarian candidates to run for office, and they absolutely should post something up on either social media, or they should reach out to people individually, and they should be cultivating a farm team of candidates within their area. There's no question about it. The question is whether or not this needs to be mandated. And I think the answer to that is no. Number one, if it's mandated, it's pretty much unenforceable. There's not going to be a Gestapo at the state committee level that's going to monitor all the behavior of every county affiliate and whether or not they're adequately using the 3-week time frame here to post notification for people to run on within the party on the Libertarian Party line. And so the only way that this is going to come up is if somebody files a complaint. And then if somebody within the district files a complaint, perhaps because they didn't see the notification, perhaps they're not on an email list, then it's up to the county affiliate and organization to prove that they did the right thing. And so the burden of proof is on the county affiliate. I think that there is a better way to get action on this issue. In other words, there's a better way to actually have county affiliates and organizations do these things without using force, and that's through coaching, through training, and through mentorship from county affiliates and leaders that know the correct things to do. And therefore, when they coach and train and mentor other county affiliates without the necessary experience, you'll see that more duplicated, and we don't have to have some draconian rules. So that, so with that, I propose that we take up my amendment and vote in favor. Thank you.
Okay, so Mr. Rigo has moved to take up his amendment C. Is there a second to this amendment? It's been seconded by Mr. O'Connor and by Mr. Cole. We move to debate. Dr. Glogowski, you're first in line to speak against.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm totally opposed to removing this from the rules document. Basically, what we've had earlier, just a matter of fact, at the end of the last motion, was a call for guidance. And what this does is it creates some expectations in terms of the conduct of the chairman of the counties, in terms of what they should be doing for the libertarians in their county. It calls for notifications. It calls for consideration. I believe the only tool we have as libertarians in terms of changing our society is to create expectations. If you strip this from the rules, basically you're saying we have no expectations and we'll accept any kind of conduct based on good intentions. And good intentions are great, but if they're not implemented in a timely fashion, we don't have candidates. I believe this basically sets that expectation for county chairman, and to take it and delete this whole section says we don't have any expectations. We'll live with whatever you get. We'll blame it on a poor training. We'll blame it on your neighboring counties to do better jobs, and that's all we'll do. I think we can do better than that. I think we should set this expectation and hold the county chairman to it. Otherwise they're not doing their job. If they're not doing their job, we should have a way to remove them. So I'm actually opposed to striking it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Glogowski. I'm going to let Mr. Anderson speak before we move to Pietro's motion. Mr. Anderson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Durazio. I'd like to speak in favor of Rob's motion to strike this section. As the new chair, I have absolutely no interest in setting up an enforcement regime and making the state committee, or the executive committee for that matter, responsible for more than it needs to be. I think that it is in the best interest for us to set expectations to Dr. Glogowski's point. However, setting up an enforcement regime and mandatory guidelines with such specificity is completely unnecessary and frankly, very unlibertarian. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Duraci, you have, you would like to consider this by paragraph. Are you making a motion to divide this?
Yes, I am. According to the lines of, let me pull this up. Yeah, it's by each paragraph. So 15.5.1, 15.5.1.1, 15.5.1.2, and 15.5.2. Wow, that's a mouthful. But yes, I'd like to consider each of these by paragraph.
Okay. Ms. Harlos, I'm going to ask you, what is the best way for us to handle this motion?
Well, I'm somewhat confused. It seems like we are only handling one paragraph right now.
I believe Mr. Geraci's intention is to handle the striking of 14.5.1, 0.5.1.1, 0.5.1.2, and 0.5.2 separately as 4 separate questions.
Oh, I see. So this isn't one paragraph. You guys have it in multiple.
Correct.
All right. So that's a majority vote, and you can do that if the body wishes to. You can consider by paragraph.
That is a motion that would require a second, and I'm not seeing one coming, so. There is a second to that motion by Mr. Greaveland.
It is not debatable.
So let's move right to the vote. That was going to be my next question, and I actually thought that was the case. So
I
TJ,
have, shall we consider the Arrigo C amendments to Rule 14.5 by paragraph, strike each paragraph of Article 14.5 prohibition against accommodations? Is that sufficient?
that works.
2 minutes?
2 minutes.
It should now be available sometime within the next 30 seconds, depending on your internet connection speed and exactly when the refresh happens.
Mr. Anderson, I think you know that your motion, the motion to recess is not quite yet in order, but I will get to it when it is.
Poll is complete.
We consider by paragraph with 10 ayes and 27 nays. The motion to consider this by paragraph fails. We move back to debate on the amendments. We have Dr. Brayman to speak against and Mr. Arrigo to speak for. Dr. Brayman, you're up.
Yes, once again, I would like to endorse what Dr. Glogowski said. The enforcement mechanism that people are worried about is, I think, obvious in the only case where it's important, which is when a certificate of authorization, a request for a certificate of authorization is presented by a subset of counties or even one county to the state committee. And the state committee needs to know that there is a valid reason for doing this. Again, I look at this through the prism of what happened this past spring in the New York 22nd Congressional District, where there was a chair of the largest populated county that had an affiliate, who was from the beginning an ally of Claudia Tenney, the Republican candidate, and went out of the way to make accommodations for her to be able to get the Libertarian line on the ballot. To the best of my knowledge, he did not in any way seek out a true Libertarian enrollee as a candidate for this office, and instead pushed very hard for his ally, Claudia Tenney, to get this authorization. When he went to the state committee, it's not clear to me on what basis they refused him. Well, actually, it is clear there were other mistakes that he made. But if he had made fewer mistakes, I think this still would have been justification for refusing him that authorization. If this rule had been in place, it would have been obvious what he needed to have done before attempting to get this authorization for Claudia Tenney. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Raymond. Mr. Arrigo, you'd like to speak for your amendments. Actually, I'm going to let Mr. Geraci speak for it, and then Mr. Donnelly, and then you, Mr. Arrigo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had moved to try and divide it by paragraph because there was one part that I wanted to keep, which was the requirement to give notice that there's positions available. But there's one part of the text that I don't like, and it's the one where it says, let me scroll. It says deliberately leave a vacancy on the Libertarian line when an enrolled member of the party wishes to run. I'm concerned that could be construed so that if a county affiliate refuses to endorse somebody because maybe they're not a good candidate, that would be seen as deliberately leaving a vacancy. And I think they should be allowed to leave that vacant because, it doesn't make sense to run somebody who's not going to represent the party well and is going to cause detriment to our party. Better just to leave it blank and wait until the next cycle to find a worthy candidate. So definitely, at the very least, that should be struck. And I was hoping to get this by paragraph so that we could avoid some of this controversy here, but guess not. But yeah, I think this should be struck. I did want to keep 15.1.1, but that's not strong enough for me to oppose because of 15.5.2, which I think absolutely has to go.
Fair enough. Thank you. I see Dr. Glogowski wants to speak against again for a second time. I'll allow it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I would like to address Pietro's last comment, and it's primarily because in the city of Rochester, if you watch the Republicans, they always prevent their candidates from running in office, and I would like to not have that be a possibility. Basically, the Republicans give the cities the cities, and they discourage their own candidates from running, primarily because they think their candidates are not qualified or not good enough. And I would much rather have the very poor candidate running on the Libertarian line that is a Libertarian than the very best competent Republican or Democrat running on our line, primarily because of the political philosophy that they embrace. And so I would like to see this stay in because it's really important that we don't start adopting practices that are very common in the other parties.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Glogowski. Mr. Arrigo, I'll let you speak for.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, there's no political party in New York State that can prevent a member of its party from running for office. All they have to do is pass petitions, get enough petitions, and they get on the ballot. Second, we have a means to ensure that through the endorsement process that we just adopted yesterday to ensure that Libertarian Party candidates are given a fair hearing and so that the issue in Broome doesn't happen again. Second, the idea that if all we do is pass a rule, then everybody's going to do it If that were true, then people will be, the county affiliates right now would be holding monthly meetings. But there's not every county affiliate holding a monthly meeting, despite there being a rule to hold monthly meetings. And so how does adding another rule here force people to do anything? It doesn't. And finally, it appears to me that obviously there were very terrible things that happened around the Broome County situation. I don't agree with it. But putting more burden on everybody else because of one or two bad actors isn't fair to everybody else. And so what I'll say is that, if you have problems in Broome, probably the best way to deal with it is to elect better leaders. That's how you deal with it when you have a nefarious character in office, not put burdens on Saratoga for the sake of putting burdens on Saratoga. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Gugowski, you've spoken on this twice, so but we have no one else waiting to speak, so I will allow it for up to 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to address what was just said in terms of the elect better leaders. My observation in this party has been that whenever the party starts playing toesies with the Democrats and Republicans, or even the independence parties, we lose good, solid libertarians because they're just fed up with it. And I think we need to put an end to that type of practice. I think we need to actually look at what our practices do and what happens to this party every time we cross endorse. First, it confuses all of the electorate as to what we stand for. Do we stand for Democrats because we endorse the Democrat, or Republican because we endorse the Republicans? We're saying those parties are better because we're considering their candidates are better than our candidates. They're more important philosophies. That's what we're saying every time we cross endorse. And if you actually look at what's happened when we cross endorsed at the state level, all chapters themselves have disappeared because people that are solid libertarians were fed up with our party being used for other political purposes, other political parties. We become a rubber stamp. And I think that leaving these in there will emphasize the importance of the focus on the libertarians and the libertarian objectives. And if it's a little bit more work, it's only a little bit more work for those chairmen that don't want to do it in the first place. And
thank you, Dr. Gogowski. With that, I see no one else looking to be recognized. Mr. Kolste is looking to call the question. I was going to move us to a vote anyway. So let's do that. TJ, if you'd be so kind.
This is, shall we adopt the Arrigo C amendments to Rule 14.5, strike the entirety of 14.5 by Broome, correct? That's where we're at. Tony, were you muted? I didn't hear a response.
Yes, I was.
Okay.
No, you're correct. And yes, for 2 minutes.
All right. It is now available. I'd just like to note I'm having to pay attention to your guys' convention more than I paid attention to my own convention.
We're far more entertaining than California anyway.
Fake news.
Tony, do we have honorary memberships we can grant to TJ and Karen Ann for their help this weekend?
I think we should. You know, in the corporation, we could have done that easily. With our enrollment, I don't know that we can. Voting is done. With 16 ayes and 15 nays, the amendment passes. We have a motion to recess right now. So those of you at the hotel can check out of your rooms or do whatever you need to do. Why don't we stand at ease until 11 a.m. Eastern time? Sound good? And when we come back, we will return to the rules. I believe we have one more amendment to consider. Thank you. Are Dr. Becker and Aaron Becker in Syracuse right now, or are they on the road?
No, they're not. They're not here in Syracuse.
Okay, so they must have left and been on the road. That's a shame.
They are voting though, so.
So looking at the agenda, we have the resolutions subcommittee. I'm actually going to have a resolution to put forward when we get to that. Hope you've all been taking full advantage of your time at ease.
Tony, does figuring out if 11 o'clock is too early to have a beer count as you could use your time?
I can think of a few better ways to use your time.
Depends on what the answer was.
Yeah, I said, well, maybe not a beer, but I can have a mixed drink at 11 o'clock. That's fine.
I mean, Bloody Mary, that's
Yep.
fully appropriate for a Sunday brunch. If you want to make your coffee a little Irish, that's also appropriate.
How about scotch and soda? Scotch and soda, is that appropriate morning drink? I don't know.
After 11, I think you're probably okay.
Okay.
I mean, McDonald's stopped serving lunch, stopped serving breakfast at 10:30. That's the unofficial cutoff as far as I'm concerned. They took advantage of COVID-19 to do away with all-day breakfast. I was quite upset to find that out.
You know, I didn't realize that, but you're right.
I went there one afternoon to get a sausage McMuffin with egg. You know, standard lunch, and as it turns out, I couldn't.
So I went and found, oh, that is terrible. It doesn't show up at all. I need to find a better way to do that. But in the settings, there are two settings that if you uncheck them, enter full screen when a participant shares screen and maximize zoom when a participant shares. If you uncheck those, it makes Zoom so much more enjoyable.
Fortunately, you can't really do that when you're in an active meeting, can you?
I think you still can. Yeah.
You can. I just did.
Oh. Yep, I did as well. Good to know. Clock on the wall says 11 o'clock. Mine just turned that way, Mr. Cole. So we are back from at ease. Just kind of want to do a quick visual to make sure that most people are back. I'm going to ask in Syracuse, how's it going?
Good.
Good. Ready to get started again? Let's go. Love it. Give Pietro, I'm going to stall for about 30 seconds while Pietro walks back to the room. I see him walking. But Mr. Colstein, I believe we have one more amendment to consider. Is that correct?
Yes, but it may not end up being considered. I can, if you're ready, I can mention it.
Go right ahead.
I'm going to put it on the screen so everyone can see it. Let's see.
You're muted, Andrew.
Can you hear me? All right. Okay, this is Donnelly Amendment D, which is a variation of Coburn Amendment A, which failed yesterday, which is basically to disallow cross endorsements. So this would basically be out of order since it failed yesterday. That would be the chair to body to determine.
The chair is going to determine that it is out of order because we attempted this yesterday and it did fail.
All right, that concludes my rules subcommittee report.
Wonderful. Excuse me. We move on to the report of the resolutions subcommittee. I believe Mark Legowski, you are the chair of that subcommittee. Is that correct?
Yes, it is, Mr. Chair. But I have no emails with resolutions, so there's nothing to report.
Fair enough. I'm going to take 2 points of personal privilege at this particular time. And the 2 points of privilege, personal privilege I'm going to take are the first one is the most important one, and that is to wish State Committee member Erin Becker a happy birthday. If the body would indulge me in singing happy birthday to her, that would be great. If the body would not, we can skip that. There's objection. Objection from TJ. I don't think that Mr. Olinsky, you have a question of privilege.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If you're going to indulge us all with your lovely singing, I'd just like to let the body know that today is also my birthday. And thank you.
Then we really need to do this. Okay, are you all ready? At this point, I think we need to unmute everybody. Just this once. Can you even do that?
I don't know if I can unmute everybody at the same time, but I can set it where everybody can unmute themselves if they'd like to participate. In true libertarian fashion, you have the choice.
I'm unmuted.
There it
is.
Okay, on 3.
Watch no one see what me. Be embarrassing.
Which of those echoes are we following?
There we go. I was muted. Oh, so sorry. All right, you ready?
Has got a guitar. Get the bagpipes, Pietro.
I can play it on bagpipes, but I didn't bring them.
1.
Use your harmonica.
Give us a key, Pietro.
Yeah, key of G.
Wait a minute. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. Hold on.
I know,
Hold on.
but did you want to
Hold on.
If we stream Happy Birthday on YouTube, is that a problem?
Nope, it's in the public domain now.
Is it really?
That's been fixed. Yep.
Okay, good.
I thought about that. Here we go. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Aaron and Chris. Happy birthday to you.
Enrollment just dropped 45%, guys.
I
think we should all take time to thank our
Wow.
And now because of that, you're all getting muted again.
Motion to remove me as second vice. That was fair.
During the at ease, my wife said that we were being too loud, so she made me put the headset on, and I'm guessing she really appreciates that now.
Tony, you have to unmute yourself again. Sorry, bud.
Okay. Mr. Cole has objected several times to our singing, but also he has called for orders of the day, which is the Fred Cole Memorial Orders of the Day for those of us who have been in the ISC. Mr. Brayman has a motion to fix the time and place at which to adjourn. I'm going to take one more personal privilege before I entertain these motions. So it appears that my time as chair of the Libertarian Party will be over in about the next 15 minutes. I wanted to take an opportunity to, I know I took an opportunity at the beginning of this meeting to yesterday to take to thank some people, and I'm going to do it again because I've got the microphone, I've got the floor, I get to do that. First of all, I would be remiss if I didn't thank once again Karen Ann Harlos for being our parliamentarian, and for TJ for all the hard work that he's done in getting the porcupine moving and getting these motions up, and making sure that this meeting runs as smoothly as possible. Jeff Mata, the work you've done in organizing this convention after having to pivot with just a few weeks to go into making this a completely virtual convention has been nothing short of Herculean. I want to thank the following people: Mark Pertuara, Dwayne Whitmer, Laura Newell, Fred Cole, Ilya Schwartzberg, Andrew Kolsty, Jeff Mata, Michael Arcadi, Michael McDermott, Richard Bell, James Harris, Todd Haggerty, Steve Minogue, Stephen Becker, Gary Popkin, Mark Legowski, Cody Anderson, Millie Dordell, Andrew Hollister, Tucker Coburn, Elise Alman, Jason Loveland, Kruger Gallaudet, and Jim Rosenbeck, and of course Larry Sharp. Up through Tucker Coburn were the current members of, or the last members of the interim state committee. The other 5 were members who had resigned ahead of time. You have all contributed in making sure that we still have a party to be proud of and join, a party that we can be a proud state committee for. And I thank you all for all your hard work. I thank all our candidates in New York who are continuing to move the ball forward. Our 11 congressional candidates, our countless assembly and Senate candidates, our over 200 candidates last year. You're all helping us move the ball forward for liberty. We still have a big, long fight ahead of us. Mr. Anderson gets to carry that baton for the next 2 years. I wish you the best of luck, Mr. Anderson. I'll be right there as your second vice chair, first vice chair, second in command. So be kind to him. He's got a tough couple of months ahead of him, and then probably a tough couple of years as well. Thank you very much. It has been my honor and privilege to serve with you, and it has been an honor and a privilege to serve as your chair. With that, I'm going to recognize some of the interrupting motions. Mr. Arcani, you have a request for information.
Hi, Tony. I just wanted to clarify something. In the last 2 days, I don't think we discussed a statewide strategy to retain ballot access, that we're facing extinction in about 5 weeks. I don't know if this is all for naught. I don't know if you can call for a special committee to be created to create a statewide strategy and to provide a proposal within a week so we can vote and move on it.
I would say that motion will be in order in a couple of minutes. We have a couple of other things that we need to dispatch first, but that motion will be provided that we do not move to adjourn. That will be a motion that would be in order in about 3 minutes here, I think. Mr. Arrigo, you have a request for information.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not as much of a request for information, but I just wanted to say that you did a great job in your role as interim chair here. The organization absolutely took a step forward from your time in leadership, and you should be proud of the work that you did. And we thank you, and we look forward to continuing to see you be a leader in this organization for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for those kind words. Mr. Whitmer, you have an other.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't know what to do this. First of all, I want to thank you guys for electing me a second vice. And also I want to say, Tony, thank you for all you've done. For those of you that don't know, Tony stuck his neck out in line for me back in April, or else I wouldn't have been able to be on the special election ballot. What you did was really commendable. You did a great job as chair. A lot of things trended upwards since you've taken over, and it means a lot to me. We're in good hands with Cody, and Cody will continue that trend. I look forward to working with you guys. But yeah, Tony, you've become one of my best friends, and we don't always agree on everything, but some of the attacks you've taken recently, I know how it goes, but
yes, you do.
You did it with style, you did it with class, and we're lucky to have you. Lesser men would have quit or walked away, and the fact that you persevered through it and kept coming, and you're still here means a lot. So I want to thank you.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for those kind words. Dwayne Whitmer, one of our excellent candidates. DwayneWhitmer.com. Go donate to him. We have a couple of motions. Dr. Brayman, you have a motion to fix the time and place to which to adjourn. And we have a motion from Mr. Cole to adjourn, unqualified and cannot dissolve the assembly. Dr. Brayman, if you would be so kind as to clarify your motion for me, please.
Yes, I move to fix the time and place to adjourn to 9 a.m. on Saturday, October 10th via Zoom and Porcupine to consider strategies for retaining ballot access and including platform.
So you have made a motion that has been seconded by Mr. Phelan to adjourn this meeting until October 10th at 9 a.m. to discuss strategies, which would include platform. And there is a second to that by Mr. Phelan. Mr. Kolsky, you have a request for information.
Yes.
Andrew, I muted you. I'm sorry.
I was unmuted, then I muted. Is the motion should be worded in a way of what I believe it's intended to was to be adjourn this meeting, which is the organization meeting, and set the date of the next meeting to not have it continue to a third meeting, to a third sitting. Otherwise, it'd still be under the organization.
And you'd still be subjected to this lovely fish chairing it.
Exactly.
Dr. Brayman, would you accept that as a friendly amendment? I believe that was your intention.
I'm a little unclear as to what you're saying. The intention is that if and when we vote to adjourn, that we would automatically have a next meeting set up, that we would not have to have another meeting called by the executive committee or the state chair.
So your motion would continue this meeting on October 10th.
I don't.
I don't think that was your intention.
No, that was not my intention. My intention was to set a new meeting on October 10th. Maybe
Fair
Ms. Harlos could explain if there was a way to do that. Is that a?
Ms. Harlos, if I think that Mr. Kolste's recommendation might remedy that, but if I'm wrong about that, please, Ms. Harlos, speak up.
Yes, Mr. Kolste's suggestion would remedy that, but just be aware then that you'd be adjourning this convention sine die, so that it would dissolve this assembly.
Correct. Mr. Arrigo, you have a request for information.
So I just want to be clear on the rules for the entire state committee body. My understanding was that there was put to be 4 meetings a year. Is that what's in the rules, Mr. Chairman?
I'm going to let Mr. Kolste answer, but that is my understanding as well.
I will, yeah, at least I will pull up the exact rules. I have them here. Meetings of the state committee. Let's see. Okay, meetings. So that would fall under other meetings. State committee shall hold meet in person by teleconference at least quarterly. With 2 meetings to be held in person. So at least quarterly.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
I'm thinking about this. I'm getting a couple of suggestions from people, and I'm kind of thinking how we should best handle this. Really, we should be handling this as 2 separate motions. One to set the time and place of the next meeting, and one to adjourn this meeting.
Mr. Chair, it can be done as combined, but it's always at your discretion to determine it's best handled as 2 separate questions. That is the privilege of the chair.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm trying to think about. I'm kind of watching the chat too and watching some of the conversation. And Mr. Schwartzberg, I'll get to yours in a second. I'd like to, and frankly, Mr. Anderson, since you'll be chairing the next meeting, it's yeah. You want one question? Is that what you want? Oh, now he's laughing. Now he's laughing at me. That's okay.
I think he's asking for 1 second to unmute. I don't know.
Sorry, I was trying to raise a question of privilege just to have the floor. I would like to convene the executive committee to have a conversation about this. I don't know that a week is a lot of time to call, is enough time to call a full meeting of the state committee. I would like to have an executive committee meeting in the next 3 days. If that gives me enough notice, Andrew, under the rules. I'm not certain that it does. Maybe you can give me an idea on that.
I may be able to help you here a little bit, Cody. You have I believe you have all your executive committee members in the room. If they consent to having shorter notice, I think we can still do it, as long as consent for the shorter notice is given.
Okay. I believe we probably have a quorum of the executive committee here. Is that correct?
Quick count. I'm seeing at least 5 of us. I see 6, 7. There's at least 7. I'll stop. There's at least 8 of us. So yeah.
I would ask Dr. Brayman to remove his motion from the floor so I can make a motion to waive notice.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
just
Yes.
a couple suggestions. First, notice cannot be required, cannot be waived without consent of everyone, because it really is prejudicing the notice requirement, the notice rights of the
okay,
people who aren't here. But it is highly unorthodox for one whole assembly to set an exact date when there's a brand new chair whose prerogative it is really to set these meetings. And what might be more effective is for this body to direct the new chair to set a date for a new meeting within so many days, because otherwise it really is kind of intruding and on the authority of the new chair.
no, I'm with you on that one, which is kind of why I was turning it over to Cody a little bit to see how he wanted to handle this. I'm looking to see who we're missing on the executive committee. I don't see Mr. Patel.
Ms. Burrell is not here.
Ms.
Oh, no,
Burrell
she
is
is here.
here.
She is here.
No, Mr. Patel, and Mr. Patel is the only one not here. Of the executive committee.
Okay. Mr. Kolstey, what is the notice requirement for a meeting of the executive committee, and what is the notice requirement for a meeting of the full committee?
Okay, so there's a couple things about this. In Article 6 in the rules, Article 6 is on the state committee. A notification is 7 calendar days shall be given, a waiver of notice signed before or after meeting, blah, blah, blah. So it's 7 days according to the state committee, the full body. Now in Article 7, there was an interpretation that anything under state committee applies to the executive committee. But there was some last minute rules amendments proposals that weren't considered. And one of them was Paul Grindle had an amendment to add a notification section for the executive committee meetings, since it's not in there explicitly. It was his interpretation that there currently is no notice requirement because it's not explicitly said in Article 7, and it's not clear whether Article 6 notification requirements applies to Article 7 for the executive committee. So at this time, depending on the interpretation, there may not even be a notice requirement for the executive committee. It would probably just fall back to election law, which is 5 days.
It's about to be moot because Mr. Patel is on his way in. But I'm sorry, I did not mean to interrupt you, Mr. Anderson.
Is the purpose for having all the executive committee members here and able to vote on it? Is the purpose to set a time and date of the meeting, or I'm not clear what is being recommended here?
So if you want to have a meeting within 3 days and there is a notice requirement, then you need unanimous consent to waive any existing notice requirements. If you, there's other ways you can handle this. You could have executive committee meeting immediately following adjournment if you really wanted to, and provided you had the whole committee here to consent to that.
I'd like Mr. Arcadi to speak a little bit to what he expects us to do, because I think he sort of threw it out there that we should do something at the last ISC meeting. I think he's thrown it out again there that we should do something. I'd sort of like to know what he thinks we can do in 30 days.
And Mr. Arc, I'll give you some flexibility here to talk about that, Mr. Arcadi.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm sure everyone understands that if we don't get enough votes in the presidential election on our line, we will lose ballot access. Without ballot access, basically lose all power. So I look to the leadership, Mr. Anderson, as being in the military, you need a strategy. You form a strategy, you provide to the ground troops, us and the county committees, what to do to get out the vote and to vote on the libertarian line. When I talk to the lay people on the street, they don't understand it. They don't know about it. Whether it is a media blitz, whether it's a social media blitz, whether it's on the ground, it needs to be a strategy formed together. Either I'm willing to vote to give you emergency powers or the executive team powers, give you lines of funding, whatever. Stop dithering on the procedure. We're dealing with existential crisis here. Do what you need to do to win, to get those votes in next month. So if you need me to make a motion or someone to make a motion, someone who understands parliamentary procedure better or relax the rules, do what you need to do, but we need to win. So that's what I'm asking.
My only concern, Mr. Arcadi, is that this committee as a housekeeping committee is relatively limited to what it can do. I believe that what we came up with after the last ISC meeting in coordination with Joe Jorgensen's campaign, who is ultimately responsible for promoting their candidates, what we came up with was a fundraising campaign to get to get billboards. It was a directed antidote campaign actually to get billboards in major metropolitan areas around the state. Although we cannot direct that, the Jorgensen campaign ultimately has to do that. We do have a fundraising link, and Tony might have it more readily available than I. The Jorgensen campaign actually set up a New York only link to to help with fundraising prerogatives within New York State for the Jorgensen-Cohen campaign. Do you happen to have that link, Tony?
Give me like 2 minutes and I will.
Yeah, I have to look it up, and I'm happy to put it in the chat. I'm happy to email it to the state committee members. Of course, they'll take donations. For our part, what we can do is we can drive voting on the libertarian line. We can send instructions to county organizations, to have sign waves. We can do canvassing, I suppose. We had talked last time, Michael, about getting collateral from the campaign. They have it all on their website. It's for individuals to print and distribute as they see fit. I know Mr. Olensky has already offered to do that. If somebody can provide the collateral, which we can, others may wish to do the same. But we're. Go ahead, Tony. I'm sorry.
I was going to say specifically to the 5 boroughs. Ms. Lau has an awful lot of collateral, rack cards, door hangers, palm cards, in her possession. So I know that collateral exists on the ground there. Sorry, Mr. Anderson, continue.
No problem. The other thing is look, the Jorgensen campaign has sent a limited number of signs for us to distribute. Tony has probably has about 100. I have about 50 for Eastern New York. I'm happy to meet whatever county chairs to pick them up, and they can put them on their own lawns. I haven't heard much from my other county chairs about or my adjacent county chairs about wanting any, but I think I need to get the word out there that I have them. I need to do a better job of that. So that being said, I think yes, Michael, we can absolutely communicate directly with the county chairs to get this done. And we unfortunately in the end we do have to rely on them to execute. I think that's all I have to say about that. Michael, if you have any other suggestions, please provide them.
I understand. It's just, I think individual, especially in the New York City boroughs, from my understanding of if I call a meeting even outside, I'm lucky if I get 20 people. And I think it's true for most boroughs. I think you need to create a special committee to come up with a strategy and next statewide strategy. Think of us as individual boroughs, but a group of pooled resources. If we have to take all pooled resources and just put them in the counties where we're going to get the most votes, I'm willing to take my guys, go to upstate and knock on those doors. It's not worth my time to knock on doors here in Queens if I'm not going to get those votes. So use this as a pool resource, but create a committee, create a strategy, and then disseminate that strategy down to us and use us as a pooled resource.
Mr. Mata, has Rich Patel joined the Zoom? Okay, I believe we have all 10 members of the executive committee meeting here. I'm seeking just a short voice vote to waive notice from the executive committee to hold a meeting tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock via Zoom.
Oh, you might want to do a roll call. You've only got 9 people to call, so.
Nope, totally fine. Let me bring up my list. Actually, Mr. Secretary, would you mind running the roll call?
I will. Let me pull up the.
And what I'm looking for here, executive committee, I'm just looking for just a yay or nay on waiver of notice for the meeting at 7 o'clock tomorrow.
Okay, roll call vote on waiver of notice for meeting at 7 p.m. September 28th. Okay, so Cody Anderson.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Tony D'Orazio.
Yep.
All right. Dwayne Whitmer.
Yeah. So let me mute myself.
Dwayne?
He said yes.
Is Paul there too?
I believe Mr. Grindle is on separately.
Mr. Whitmer, will you please poke Mr. Grindle and have him chime in on whether or not he assents to waiver of notice?
Right now.
There we go.
You're unmuted.
Mute yourself. Mute yourself.
Computer. Sound.
Oh, you're
so I can do this time, but I would like to request that we move it to Tuesday. And the reason for that is Thomas Queter's campaign meetings are Monday at 7 p.m.
You are absolutely right. All right. So
point of information, Mr. Anderson. Tomorrow's Yom Kippur.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, my parents will kill me.
You might want to make that meeting for today or Tuesday. It's your call.
Yom Kippur 2 days.
Let's go for today at 7, if no one minds.
Yep.
That's fine with me.
Okay, I consent, and if you can just run down the list.
Today at 7?
I'm sorry?
Today at 7?
Today at 7, yes.
I believe Dwayne Whitmer has an event.
Oh, well, Paul just said it was okay. Does Dwayne have an event?
Okay, well, I'm gonna say yes. Laura?
Today at 7 is also Yom Kippur, according to Ilya. Sorry, I tried.
It's gonna have to be Tuesday at 8 then.
Okay.
Okay.
I consent.
Okay, Tuesday at 8. Okay, Tony, you good with that?
Yep, I'm good with that.
Dwayne?
Hang on.
Tuesday at 8?
Yeah, Tuesday works both for Polly and I, so.
Okay.
Great.
All right, for Tuesday. Okay. Laura?
Tuesday at 8's fine.
Okay, Maria? Tuesday at 8?
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you.
Pietro?
Yes, I can. Oh, there we go. Yes.
Okay, Rich Patel? Tuesday at 8?
Yep.
All right, Rob Arrigo?
Yes.
All right, that's everybody.
Okay, thank you. Meeting scheduled 8 o'clock Tuesday, PM.
And that's an executive committee meeting, correct, Mr. Anderson?
Yes, that's executive committee, not full committee.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. So with that, I think we probably have some things to clear out of the queue. Tim, let's start. TJ, let's start with your point of order you were about to make.
My point of order was, what do you want me to clear out of the queue? Because I lost track.
I believe we've dispatched Mr. Anderson's question of privilege. I think Mr. Grindel's request for information was that, I think that was handled, right, Paul?
Can unmute myself. You just unmuted.
Yes, Paul says yes. Okay, so that's cleared. We do still have a motion on the table from Mr. Brayman that Mr. Anderson did ask Mr. Brayman to withdraw. I see there's a division of the question by Mr. Phelan, and I kind of want some clarification on that. So why don't we start there? Mr. Phelan? Mr. Phelan appears to have dropped, so we'll come back to him. Dr. Brayman, I'm going to come back to you and ask if you'd like to restate your motion in any way, shape, or form based on the conversation.
I would like to propose that the body direct the executive committee to, or the chair to set a time for the next meeting within 2 weeks.
So is your intention to set the time within 2 weeks or set the meeting within 2 weeks?
Set the meeting within 2 weeks.
So meet within 2 weeks. Got it. Okay. And there's a second to that motion. I don't believe that's what Mr. Cole wants to speak against, but he is in queue to speak. If he, it was seconded by Pietro.
Okay.
Mr. Cole, did you want to speak against Mr. Brayman's motion? Or did you want to speak against the something else?
What? This has changed a few times. What is the motion at the moment?
So the present motion on the floor is to direct the chair to set a time for the entire state committee to meet within 2 weeks. There we go.
I'm crafting the motion.
It's on screen. If anybody would like to speak to this motion at all, that's fine. Otherwise, we can move to a vote. Mr. Cole, you do want to speak against? Is that correct? You have the floor if you do.
Yeah. Do we really need I feel like since the incoming chair is in the room, he understands our point of view, and we don't really kind of need to vote on this. I think we can trust Cody to handle the situation appropriately without us having to actually vote on it.
Fair enough. Thank you, Mr. Cole. Mr. Coburn.
Yeah, just briefly, I don't think that this is a matter that the state committee as a whole should be dealing with. I think that as we transition to a more legitimate political party, there will be a more active executive committee and a slightly less active state committee. And I would prefer that this be a issue that the executive committee take more of a lead on.
Fair enough. Thank you, Mr. Coburn. Would anybody else like to speak to this motion? Dr. Brayman, you'd like to speak for? You have the floor.
Yes. Tucker's point that we should leave this up to the executive committee is valid for all aspects of my intention, except for addressing the platform. The executive committee cannot take any action on changing the platform. If we want to make any change in the platform prior to the election, and I do believe that we should to help our chances, the only way to do it is to have another meeting of the entire state committee.
Thank you, Dr. Brayman. Mr. Griebsland.
Yeah, I'd like to go ahead with what Dr. Brayman was saying as well. I think that it's very important that the state committee be involved with the platform. I think that today or yesterday, or yeah, today was a little disappointing that we couldn't address some of the amendments on there for people who worked very hard on it for this summer. And I think as a to show their good merits for the hard work that they've done, I think that the state committee should come back together in the next month to address that.
Thank you, Mr. Griebsland. Mr. Anderson.
I'd like to speak against this motion. One, we're having an executive committee meeting on Tuesday, so you need not direct me to schedule a meeting anytime soon. Second, the platform issues have been referred by resolution of this body to subcommittee. So the real prerogative here with respect to the platform is to get a platform subcommittee created and to allow the people who have already done work on this to continue work on it. Third, I also don't believe that a platform takes a lot of work and is not going to be out in time for the election. And I don't think that it matters for purposes of getting us votes on our line. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Tate has oh wait, hold on. Mr. Cole, you're next in line to speak against, but I don't know if that was an artifact. Or if you would ask to speak against again.
It's not an artifact. I'll keep this short and sweet since I've already spoken against this motion. We just elected an executive committee less than 24 hours ago. I don't think it's appropriate for this body to attempt to micromanage what they do. We should give them some breathing room and trust the judgment of the people we literally elect.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. Mr. Tate is next in line to call the question. Do I have a second on calling the question? I do have a second. Ending debate. I'm going to move us to a vote on ending debate on this question to keep things moving along. TJ, if you'd be so kind as to put up a poll for that one.
This will be, shall we end debate on the question of the chair setting a date, basically, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. You're a poet and you don't even know it.
And 2 minutes?
2 minutes, yes.
It is available.
About 15 seconds left on that. With 38 ayes and 2 nays, we've ended debate on this topic. Mr. Geraci, your amendment would be out of order, and we move to the vote on the motion. If you do you have that motion, TJ, or do you need it back on screen?
I have the following. Shall we direct the executive committee or chair to set the time and date of the next meeting of the state committee within 2 weeks? And I believe that means that the meeting would be within 2 weeks, not the setting of the date and time within 2 weeks.
Yes, and that was clarified by Dr. Raymond. Correct.
Okay. It is available for 2 minutes.
During these 2 minutes, I will stop spamming TJ with my messages. And if you look in the chat, you will see the link to the New York specific Jorgensen for President donation page where where the campaign is collecting donations to contribute to outdoor advertising. I did find the link, Cody. Everybody is so quiet today. We're supposed to be contentious. We're libertarians. Come on, guys. There's about 20 seconds left on this poll, so if you have not voted, please do. Okay, the poll is complete. 17 ayes, 18 nays. The motion fails. Thank you all for your participation in the process. Mr. Arrigo would like to wrestle after this meeting is over. That's cool. Mr. Cole, there is no main motion, so you are making a motion to adjourn.
Yes, I move to adjourn.
We have a second to that. Without objection, and I'm going to wait a few seconds for objection, we can move to adjourn this meeting and shut it down. And check to make sure there's no raised hands before I just go ahead and do that. Okay, with that, we are adjourned. Thank you very much, and give yourself a round of applause for organizing. Excellent, well done. Thank you, everybody, for all your very hard work. This is no you're a little late to appeal my ruling there, Mr. Helensky and Mr. Tate. But
Y'all did a fantastic job.
Yes, we all did great, and I'm very proud of the work that we got done in such an efficient manner. These things don't usually end early.
Well, plus you guys have the, I don't know whether it's an honor or not, but the first convention I've ever officially been the parliamentarian at as I embark on that part of my career. So
Hey,
you'll be first on my resume when I eventually have one for other organizations. I'd never charge a Libertarian Party, but I'm hoping to be working for some other organizations. So this will be my first thing on my resume.
fantastic. You did a terrific job, and you were extremely helpful. I think you really helped us move this meeting along and kept us efficient.
Well, thank you for the confidence. I feel honored.
I'm looking forward to Porcupine 3.0 and seeing what enhancements we have just put into place. We have given ideas we've given to TJ.
Just I want to throw this out there. TJ had mentioned to us via email that he would like us to anybody who's on LinkedIn to recommend him. And I think the stellar work he did this weekend, I will be happy to do so. And if anybody else would like to do the same, I highly recommend you do so. TJ, where can we find you on LinkedIn? Are you under TJ or are you under Tim?
That's a great question. I think I'm under TJ. Let me go look real quick. Oh, no, it's Tim Ferreira. Here, I'll put the link in the chat.
Also, if we want things to be more contentious in the future, the mic muting definitely prevented that on quite a few levels.
We planned it that way too.
Seems like it was a good strategy.
Well, we did have the alligators just in case, but
That's right.
they remain hungry.
Tony, do you want to give a conclusion to our YouTube audience, and we can close the stream?
I ate the alligators, just so you know.
What was that?
I said I ate the alligators.
You ate an alligator.
It was two.
Okay, folks, this is Tony DeRazio, the last chair of the interim state committee of the Libertarian Party of New York. This was the organizing meeting of the Libertarian Party of New York, where we established our state committee and a great set of rules. We accomplished a lot of business during this time, and I thank you all for watching. If you have any questions about the Libertarian Party of New York, please visit our website at lpny.org, or to donate, go to lpny.org/donate. That's lpny.org/donate. Thank you very much for tuning in.